The Biden administration is struggling to handle the growing number of migrant children arriving at the U.S. Mexico border. And although the White House says it's trying to work out a more, quote, efficient and humane system, critics say the new policies are directly responsible for the influx. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. So, Camilo, CBS News reports U.S. and Customs Border Protection carried out more than 100,000 apprehensions in February. How many of those were children? How do we compare the numbers to recent years? And what of the criticism that it is President Biden's policies and his attempt at reversing or removing some of former President Trump's policies that is leading to this crisis?
Hey, good morning, Vlad. I'll start with your first question. As you mentioned, U.S. border officials along the southern border carried out more than 100,000 apprehensions in February. Nearly 9,500 of those apprehensions were of unaccompanied children, most of them Central American teenagers. That is the highest figure of unaccompanied children since the spring of 2019, when you may remember, Vlad, we saw a significant increase in the number of Central American families and children journey to the U.S. Mexico border. In addition, 7,000 of those children were sent to U.S. government overseen shelters, which right now are under limited capacity because of social distancing measures. So this is becoming a major political, logistical, and humanitarian test for the new Biden administration. And to get to your second question, which is what sort of responsibility do the Biden administration's policies have for the sharp increase in the number of children entering U.S. border custody, I think it is a bit complicated. The Biden administration has retained a Trump-era policy of expelling most adults and families without a court hearing. That is based on a public health law that the Trump administration invoked. But the Biden administration, Vlad, protected unaccompanied children from these rapid expulsions, and it is allowing them to continue their immigration proceedings here in the U.S. and transferring them to the U.S. Refugee Agency at HHS as required by law. So that is the major policy shift.
Okay, so then, a little bit as a result, we see more children. What is sort of the logistical problems that this presents, and what is the Biden administration doing to ensure that these children are safe, that they're well taken care of, and very quickly are out of any sort of, facility that may be, putting them in harm's way?
So that question is at the center of the situation, Anne-Marie. The U.S. Refugee Agency within the Department of Health and Human Services has more than 13,000 beds for unaccompanied children, but it had to limit that capacity during the pandemic to implement social distancing. So it reduced that capacity to about 8,000. There are currently nearly 9,000 unaccompanied migrant children at U.S. government overseen shelters at the Refugee Agency's network of facilities. So they're way past COVID-era capacity, but now they are having to reactivate some of these beds by easing some of these social distancing policies and implementing enhanced COVID-19 mitigation policies. They are also looking at opening new influx facilities, including one in Florida, as well as potentially looking at using a military installation in Virginia and a NASA installation in California to house these minors. That's how dire the situation is in terms of the bed space.
So, as we mentioned, Camilo, House Republicans blame the surge on President Biden's new policies, some of which reverse the Trump administration's hardline policies on immigration. Every president in my lifetime has talked about immigration overhaul, at least in my in the last 25 years or so. What is the hope for any sort of bipartisan legislation, bipartisan support for President Biden's plans for immigration?
That's another great question. President Biden and congressional Democrats have introduced a sweeping proposal to revamp U.S. immigration laws. The centerpiece of the plan would be to place the approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country on a pathway to U.S. citizenship. Dreamers and people with temporary protected status and farm workers would have an expedited path towards legalization and U.S. citizenship. But that proposal, as it is currently written, is unlikely to get Republican support in the Senate, which is required because of the filibuster. And right now, what we're seeing is that Democrats are employing a different strategy, a piecemeal approach, if you will, of trying to pass standalone bills to address some of these issues, like legalizing DACA recipients, farm workers, through standalone bills, because some of those bills do in fact have enough Republican support that they're able to pass the Senate.
So the White House said this week that it will restart a program to allow some minors in Central America the opportunity to apply for refugee resettlement. So I presume this is a program that will help children who are living away from their parents be reunited in the U.S.
Yes, this is part of a broader Biden administration effort to expand legal pathways for people in Central America to come here as an alternative to making the dangerous trip to the U.S. Mexico border. It allows children in Central America, some children in Central America, to come here to reunite with family members here as long as their relatives have legal permission to be in the country. During the Obama years, this program was very limited in scope. So what experts and advocates say is that this is only a long-term solution that will not solve the current situation at the border with the large numbers of kids coming in. And the biggest concern, Anne-Marie and Vlad, that we haven't discussed yet is that as of earlier this week, there were more than 3,000 unaccompanied migrant children in Border Patrol stations, which are not designed to house children. They have cinder block cells with one toilet. They have no social services. They are not like the shelters overseen by the refugee agency. So that is the biggest concern among advocates and the Biden administration, that these children will continue to be stuck in Border Patrol facilities for prolonged periods of time.
All right, Camilo, thank you very much.